The owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, is back with us on Mike and Mike. Good morning, Mark.
What's up, guys? So you're saying we're all old?
Pretty much, man. I mean, hearing some of the stories of people of how long they'd listen to us. I was in middle school and I started listening to you. Now I'm 27, married with a kid. We're like, oh, my God, how old are we? It's an unreal.
I know. Isn't it crazy? I mean, I hear those same stories. My dad took me to my first Mavs game when you bought the team, and I was 5. I was like, come on, man.
I remember one time you came here very early in your tenure, and you were a guest on SportsCenter, and I was the host, and we were walking around ESPN together, and I learned a lot of stuff about the business of it from that. And so let's talk about that. It feels like we are in a golden age of the NBA right now on so many different levels. It feels as though from the star caliber of the players, the relationship, if you will, between the league and the players, so clearly distinct from what we're seeing in the National Football League, where it feels as though the ownership, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, sort of embrace how public the players are in the issues that are important to them. How would you describe where we sit right now with this league?
I think the NBA has been brilliant. It started with David Stern and his first Twitter account and leveraging social media. You know, where other sports, I think, have kind of downplayed the value of the individual player, we've amplified it. We've really tried to get our players to embrace and use and accelerate our business with their social media accounts and their own personal brands. And so it's been symbiotic. So as any given player, Dirk's social media brand grew, LeBron, Steph, etc., so does the NBA. And I think that's where we've been unique. If you look at the social media presence of our players individually, starting at the bottom up rather than the top down, you'll see it's much more significant than any other league, and I think that's paid off huge dividends for us.
It's a great point. Was there a tipping point? Was there a point in the NFL now where we see the between the league and the players and some of the things going on? Did you guys have to work through that? Were there things that maybe we didn't see publicly that players and the league had to kind of work out as you were going through that social media thing?
I mean, if you go back to the early days of Twitter where, you know, guys would be up late at night thinking they were sending a private message and it'd come out as a public tweet and everybody talk about how they were hacked, you know, and there was all kinds of silly stuff. But that's just the growing pains of all social media. And so, yeah, we fell prey to that. And look, we went through our tough times when there was the malice in the palace, you know, when people were talking about the league being too hip-hop. Those were challenging times for us, not because those people were right, but because they didn't understand who our players were, because our players didn't have a voice. Social media gave our players a voice, and our players took advantage of it. And so you got to know who each of these players are. And now you look to see what Steph or LeBron or even Dirk has to say when something happens. And that's made our league so much stronger. When, you know, because our players are unique and have their own individuality. And in any sports profession, you know, talent drives everything. If you compare that to the NFL, with all the controversy right now, they don't have that platform. If the Dallas Cowboys or the Pittsburgh Steelers, my two teams, walked in front of me, I might be able to name, you know, 3 of them by seeing them. Otherwise, I'd have to introduce myself, and that's just a significant difference between us and other sports.
Mike and Mark Cuban, what do you make of all of that? I just mentioned your players are, it feels like, encouraged to be as public as they wish with the issues that are really important to them. It feels like right now that is the opposite in the National Football League, where they're having enormous issues from a business standpoint and otherwise. What is your take on that?
Well, going back to the social media and the lack of visibility of the NFL players, their only platform is when the cameras are on. And that's when their voice is the strongest. And so if they take a knee and everybody's watching for it, then, you know, whatever message they want to send, even though they can't control the narrative, they at least start a conversation. With us, LeBron James has, 2 or 3 times as many Twitter followers as the President of the United States. When the cameras are on during any one given game, that's not a necessity for that. We don't have to talk there. We have better platforms to send a message. That's the difference between the two. And so I understand what the NFL players are doing and why they're doing it that way. And the NFL owners that just have a challenge in dealing with that.
How about on the court? You know, the league, as we said, is in a great place. You've been in the headlines so much in the offseason where football usually takes charge, but the NBA was there. But on the court, and for you, it's a tough start this year for you, and we always talk about Golden State and where some of the other players have moved. But so for you, the frustration level of you trying to be, and getting Dennis Smith Jr., everybody loves this guy, so the building back up.
Yeah,
but
he's incredible.
To get back to the top where you want to be, all owners want to win, but, man, you certainly wear it on your sleeve. How frustrating are you into getting this team back?
You know what? I knew it was just a matter of time that we'd have to take a step back in order to go forward, and I didn't think it'd be this painful. Someone just came out and said, after the Spurs, we've had the fewest days in the loss column of any team in the NBA over the past 20 years, and so it's certainly new territory for us. But we think we're going to be able to turn around relatively quickly. We went from old last year to much younger this year, and our base being younger with Dennis, with Harrison, with Seth Curry, et cetera. We've just got a strong nucleus. So I think we're going to get back. And watching our games now, you can see where our youth has hurt us, and particularly Dennis is going to be phenomenal. But when you hand the keys to a 19-year-old, there's going to be challenges at the end of games, and we've lost some close ones at the end. But that happens now, but it pays dividends off in the long run. And hopefully, by the end of this year, we'll be on a roll, or next year we'll have it turned around.
Mark Cuban is with us. Another thing we were talking about this morning that you would have, I think, unique insight into is the dynamic. Right now, there's an issue between Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell, and Jones is very upset. And I was making the comment that it's just a strange dynamic because at the end of the day, Goodell works for Jerry, but he can make decisions that Jerry doesn't like. And I go back to the earliest days of Mark Cuban's tenure in Dallas. I don't know if you know the exact number of dollars that David Stern fined you. But
no, it's in the millions.
And it was in the millions. So can you sort of explain that dynamic when you hire him? Yeah.
Okay, so on one hand, the commissioner is supposed to be a buffer because you've got 30 in the NBA and 32 owners that you've got a buffer as they compete against each other, buffer with the bigger picture because not your business interests as an individual team or as an individual might not always align with the league. That's the business side. On the competitive side, we all know as owners that, it takes some luck and it takes some happenstance to be at the top of the league. Whether it was the Mavs, whether it was the Cavs, whether it was the Heat, whether it's the Warriors, things have to go right. And that you have guys are going to age out, guys are going to get hurt. So you have this point in time, particularly in football where guys get hurt more often, where you've got to take advantage of the opportunity. It doesn't last forever. And Jerry Jones knows that, and I don't want to speak for him, I'm just telling from my perspective. Jerry knows that with Dak and with Zeke, he's got this moment in time that he's got to take advantage of. And because, one bad tackle and either one of them could be out and the entire future of the organization competitively changes. And so he's fighting to get his team on the field when he's got the opportunity to really be good and win a Super Bowl. And that's what puts them at head-to-head. Because Jerry's got to take advantage of this moment of time. He's got to fight for it no matter what. And I think all the fans respect and recognize that that's the case. Roger Goodell, on the other hand, has got to balance everything else out. And so I've been in situations where I've had other owners try to kick me out. I've had David Stern want me out, and other owners, came in and spoke positively for me. And Jerry's going through it right now. He doesn't like the way discipline is handled. He knows more than everybody about the circumstances behind Zeke in this situation. And, the NFL and Roger on the other side is trying to manage the NFL brand, the fact that there's issues in terms of domestic violence, the fact that there's issues in terms of CTE. Roger Goodell has got a very difficult job right now, and Jerry Jones wants to win. He wants to get back to the Super Bowl for the first time in a long time, and that's what creates the tension.
And certainly with the NFL, while they make a ton of money, we've all just mentioned some of the things going on right now. One of the things you had mentioned, do you think it is coming to fruition that the oversaturation overall can hurt the product?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I talked about it, a few years ago, and I think that's been the case. Look, I'm not saying the NFL is ready to implode today because of ratings. TV ratings are down across the board. But there's just there's just a lot of different circumstances that when you put them all together, I think the NFL is very challenged. I think, getting to the top is hard. Staying at the top is even harder. And I think they took some things for granted, and it's backfiring on them now.
We always appreciate your time, and I always have to mention one of my favorite shows in Shark Tank. I just love that show.
I appreciate it.
How has it been with A-Rod on there? I mean, that's
he was great. I mean, honestly, and I've said this to Alex, I was a little bit concerned because I didn't know the depth of his business experience. We'd been friends for a few years, and we talked and had lunch, but we talked more about branding and talked, about sports or whatever, and didn't really get into depth with his business. And when he came on the show, he just nailed it. He did a great job. And so I was really happy, and I think it came across in the episodes he's been on.
No, that's great. Fantastic show. Just love it. And love the time you spent with us, too, Mark. We really
Mark,
appreciate it.
over 18
and
years.
And the same, guys.
Yeah.
And congratulations on a great run. It's, like anything else, it goes by quickly, and then at the end, you always reminisce, and it's always tougher. So, congrats on your run and everything you've been able to accomplish. It's always fun to come on the show. You're one of the few shows I'll travel for, getting me go to Fort Worth or wherever. So, it's really been special to be part of it. So I thank you for that.
Thanks for everything,
appreciate
Mark.
it
Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Mark Cuban, one of the most interesting people, whether we've always agreed or disagreed, he's always got something to say, and it's always worth hearing. And he did. He got up. I remember when the Super Bowl was in Fort Worth. That was the coldest I've ever been.
It was so cold. Yeah, and he came out there for us. It was very nice of him to do, but, man, it was cold.
Actually, Hembo just sent us a trivia question and did not give us the answer. So it's a good one while we're talking about the NBA. There are only 3 active NBA players who were in the league when our show began. Can you name them?
Oh, I know one for sure.
I think I know 2 for sure, but we'll